What is going on, everybody? I hope everybody is well. I hope everybody is well. I know I'm on quickly, but this is for a recording purpose as well as going live. I will be going live again later today. But something came across my table, and I had to address it, and it will be in two parts. However, the show later today will not be the second half. It will just be a different topic altogether. This particular one, though, um, hmm, it came across my table, and I'm sorry, it's been a while since I've done a reaction to something, but this one I just had to. I just had to. For those of you familiar with the Young Turks, you know that they dabble a lot in stupidity. Um, they are very, very much involved in their emotions, and they don't know how to really keep it together. Election night in 2016 was oh my, that was wonderful. Watching them melt down was just um, expose them for the clowns that they really were. So in this case, I'm going to do this. Make sure I put this on public here so I can see the chat. So I came across a person by the name of Dr. Richey. Dr. Richey is I guess he would want to call himself African American um, intellectual. He has a show on the Young Turks. And he always seems to get these people on his show that have a hard time explaining themselves while they're in his company. And I think what he does is that he methodically goes through these people. He doesn't pick someone with a very strong, and when he does meet someone with a strong viewpoint, he cuts them off because he's beta. He doesn't really know how to maintain his composure when challenged. What's up, Shayla? When challenged, folds like a table, like a picnic table, he folds. So he had done an interview with Jesse Lee Peterson, folded on that one, kicked him off his show because he couldn't handle the information that he was being told. And of course, after his show began to rant about it. But the video that came across my table prior to that was one that he did with a young black man about CRT. And I had to watch it. It was painful. It was painful, but it was enlightening at the same time. So I want to break down just under half of the video, and the other half we'll tackle another time. So we'll start off by having the video show, and you guys can partially make your assessment before I say what I have to say, but I'll be stopping it, bringing up my 2 cents, and then we'll continue. So without further ado, this is his show, The Bullpen. So let's get it.
In the bullpen today, I have Mr. Christian Watson, spokesperson for Color Us United and host of the Pensive Politics podcast. Christian, good day. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Richey. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I don't want to presume what you know or believe about critical race theory, but we're going to talk about it, debate it here on the program. What are your thoughts about critical race theory and your alleged connection that it has to education in America, K through 12?
Right off the top, it's condescending, but that seems to be his personality. You're alleged, okay? Not asking if it's a genuine debate that you want. You should easily be able to say, tell me your viewpoints about CRT, because I really want to know what you think about CRT. The word alleged should never even breach his lips towards his guest, but he already has a condescending tone. And you can see on his face, he has a natural scowl to his face. He's probably a very miserable man. I don't know. Seems like a very miserable man. But when he speaks to his guests, it's always in this I know better than you kind of nonsensical conversation that he wants to have with people. It's annoying, really, is what it is. But the young man on his show very well spoken, probably tries a little too hard, um, but he does not really do a very good job of maintaining his points throughout the dialogue and the diatribe between them. Um, he does flip flop a little bit, or he's not very clear in his presentation with things, and it causes some trouble later down the road in the debate. And of course, just like any young Turk, he jumps and pounces on it and tries to pick out any small mistake he finds, a word slip here, a mispronunciation there. And that's what he'll harp on to try and discredit his guest. So you'll see, I'm going to move forward a little bit because I want to have you hear the young man speak first. And then you can at least get what I'm talking about. And we'll move over to Mr. Clownface over here.
So critical race theory, just putting it very simply, because there are a lot of different definitions that a lot of people like to throw out, but critical race theory, as I best understand it, is a movement of a collection of academics who work in an interdisciplinary fashion to interrogate the role that they believe white supremacy and oppression has had and still continues to have in American society. And so essentially, it's based on a few key precepts. Number one, that white supremacy is a part of the definition of America's institutions. Number two, that the impacts of white supremacy, far from any sort of individual instance of white supremacy, are still impacting and hurting Black Americans today. And number three, you have to engage those impacts in a critical way, which means, as they would say, or at least as they said in the critical race theory, the key writings, you have to engage critically, you have to engage in a sort of activist way, especially in the classroom and abroad in political society as well. And so this is really being pushed in education, or at least many of these principles, I should probably say, are being pushed in education by the 1619 Project. Now, when many folks...
Now, he specifically said that it's being pushed in education, in theory, general, not the actual theory of CRT. The precepts and concepts of CRT is being pushed, right? Mind you, that's what the young man said. So to begin, I want to be clear about what CRT is defined as in Britannica, okay? Fairly worldwide accepted, fairly neutral platform for descriptions, okay? Britannica. And I've explained this to people before. It's an intellectual movement and loosely organized framework of legal analysis based on the premise that race is not a natural biological grounded feature of physically distinct subgroups of human beings, but a socially constructed category that is used to oppress and exploit people of color. Critical race theorists hold that the law and legal institutions in the United States are inherently racist insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequities between whites and non-whites, especially African Americans. Right off the top, young man is correct. It's exactly what CRT espouses. It is not what he says is being fully taught in all schools. He knows that it's being fully pushed in colleges. It's what they teach. Started off in law schools. It has slowly filtered down through the social ranks into colleges and into the social justice fabric of things. As we all know, only an idiot like the one on the right would deny that that's the case, which he later does. Case in point.
Hear this, they're like, well, this is nonsense, it's fear mongering.
I'm going to go forward.
I'll go to the rest.
Okay.
Certainly being used in a way that I think is not really appropriate for the classroom.
So let me go back to your original definition and understanding of critical race theory, because you go to some degree and then you don't go to the rest. Critical race theory does not mandate that you become an activist. That's not part of the lexicon of the theory. The theory itself basically says that due to the origin of how we started as a country.
Does not say that. Never said anything about the origins of anything. Not once. Not once. People take this and run with it like he's doing. Not once in a definition. It's talking about the function of the United States. And it's the theory is that they believe that race is the basis for everything that happens throughout the United States, social, economical, and political. And the inequalities that are existing are because of race. No mention that America was founded on racism in the description of critical race theory. Not once.
We have these biases that are built into policies, institutions, statutes, even the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution said at one point we were 3/5 of a person. The Declaration of Independence said that Native Americans are savages.
Now let's tackle that.
In the language of the Declaration of Independence.
Perfect. I want to let's tackle that next. Let's tackle the savages comment. That one's been really pushed around. So I'm going to read for you, and you probably people really should read the Declaration of Independence. Okay, you really should. And not just that, you probably should understand the content and the context of the Declaration of Independence. It was directly towards the king. Okay, good. I want people to understand that. It was directly towards the King of Great Britain and how he was handling things here in the Americas. They have a long laundry list of things that he, by their definition, the people putting together the Declaration of Independence, was doing to the colonies here, and they had had enough. At one point in this document, it says, let's see if I can find exactly where he's talking about, okay? Because I want to make sure we get the context of it first, okay? Okay, I think I found it here. All right. He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely parallel in the world's most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation, because we were trying to become civilized. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Last time I checked, that's 100% true. The Indians scalped people, didn't they? Wouldn't you consider that savage? I mean, last time I checked, you considered the KKK pretty damn savage, didn't you, Mr. Richey? You considered slavery pretty damn savage? You consider lynching savage? Chopping off the hands of slaves that stole, that's pretty savage. Cutting off their feet, pretty savage. Raping their women, pretty savage. You have no problem associating the word savage with slave owners and slavery. But if applied to an indigenous person whose known crusades, even among themselves, were to rape, kill women, dismember, scalp, take the teeth, the bones, wear it, that's not savage and shouldn't be called out. Yeah, you're a whole fool. You're a whole fool. A whole fool. I don't know what and how you got the doctor in your name, but it must have been like Operation or Dr. Mario, a video game. That's probably how you got it. The word savage is aptly applied here, and it is very well warranted. The Indians were not these peace-loving, wonderful people that just wanted to go about their business. They killed each other often, very often. What other word are you going to use for them? They were savage. I figure if you can use the same terminology and idea towards the white men that you don't like that had slavery enforced in America and had their barbaric ways of dealing with black people, you and your little scowl can take the exact same application to the Indians. It's factual, bro. It's factual.
And then there are current modern structures that exhibit this same racial dynamic where the disparity is connected directly statistically to a race variable.
Here we go.
And you have to deconstruct that model. You have to reverse engineer that model and figure out where in the policy is it getting it wrong.
Meanwhile, he has a degree. He has a degree. Ain't that something? I find that weird that he has a degree. If the system is so hell bent against them, and you got to backtrack everything, why are some making it through? What are they doing that others aren't? It sounds like a flawed system to me. Very flawed system. But I'll let him continue.
Now, when you talk about K through 12 education, brother, you are well aware that critical race theory is not taught in K through 12
and he
education.
Never said it
you know
was.
That.
Never said it was.
Well, as I said, no one's reading Delgado, no one's reading Crenshaw, but I'm saying that critical pedagogy is a method that is being endorsed, especially by the curriculum of the 1619 Project to teach certain concepts. I think that's a self-evident fact.
Okay, so let me correct you on something. It's pedagogy.
See, the pettiness, the absolute pettiness. He can't tackle the topic. He goes to, it's pedagogy. Let me correct you on something. It's pedagogy. Let me exercise my brilliance over you. Pedagogy. Because I know so much better.
And the pedagogy that's being taught, that's an educational style. That's a method of teaching. So a theory is not really pedagogy. It's your method of connection. Go ahead.
So
last time I checked, you can teach a theory. Hey, that's just me. Wow. Anyway.
The theory itself is implemented. So pedagogy is simply the way that the theory is implemented in the classroom. So even though critical race theory itself.
So explain that to me. Explain, how do you make it critical race theory when it's not critical race theory that's being taught?
Because you're teaching the premise of critical race theory, you absolute tool bag. You empty tool bag. How are you this supposedly smart, yet this completely retarded? How is this even possible? I don't have to give it the actual title of CRT to teach all the damn guts of CRT. You know how I get around teaching CRT? By saying I don't teach CRT. You don't know, I do not teach CRT. Looking throughout my curriculum, there is nothing that says I teach CRT. But what I will do is I will take all of the tools of CRT and I will put them into my curriculum. And I will just call it social justice. Or I will call it educating kids on the social constructs of America. You absolute idiot. So of course you're still basically teaching CRT, the theory of it. You don't have to title it CRT. There's a couple of brain cells missing on this guy. There has to be. But then again, he is working for the Young Turks, so that makes a lot of sense. Of course he's going to have some brain cells missing. I'll let him continue digging his own grave, though.
How do you connect the two?
I think you're kind of moving the goalposts here, Dr. Richey, respectively, because I never claim that critical race theory itself, Delgado, Stefanik, Mary Matsuda, Crenshaw, they were being taught to K through 12 people, because they're not. I'm saying that the methodology and the principles of critical race theory are being taught, at least in the 1619 Project and across America. And I think that's
You say that you were a victim of critical race theory.
I think so, yeah.
And when were you a victim of critical race theory?
So again, I would
remember when I tell you that he always gets the guests that can't really completely explain their viewpoints. This is where it starts to get to that point. Okay.
Using critical race theory as a proxy for its methodology.
But that's not what you said. You said you were a victim. I read it, brother. I did the research on you. You said you were a victim of critical race theory.
And I was quite clear about what I meant. Yes, I was quite clear about what I meant. So for example,
when were you a victim?
I partook in collegiate debate. And collegiate debate, there's a few kinds of collegiate debate. There's policy debate, there's national parliamentary debate, and there's other kinds, there's British parliamentary debate. And in almost all of the debates, particularly in policy and in national parliamentary debate, a lot of people use critical race theory arguments. Not only that, but many of the debate judges themselves are not only sympathetic, but formally critical debaters. It's not like critical race theory is simply being used sparingly by people as a wide array of arguments. No, critical race theory actually informs the structure of collegiate debate, whether it's terms like critique or what have you. Crenshaw has been quoted several times, Derek Bell, on the idea of sort of Afro-pessimism, that's been quoted several times. Excuse me, Frank Wendelson, and the idea of Afro-pessimism, that's been quoted several times. So yeah, and because of those ideas that were dominant, I was not really accepted and allowed to be in collegiate debate by people. Well, I was allowed, but I wasn't really accepted by folks. And a lot of my arguments were considered to be offensive and ignoring lived experience being the core function of actually what critical race theorists believe. If you look at Words That Wound, Matsuda, Crenshaw, and Stefanik, and all of them say in their section where they define critical race theory that we use lived experience as a means of disrupting the narrative that ignores, Black folks and their experiences. So yeah, I was kind of a victim.
Let me help you. First of all, brother, you are not a victim of critical race theory.
Here we go, right? Here we go.
Critical race theory is a theoretical and an advanced theoretical framework that poses a question and a framework for analysis.
Yet still, this clown can espouse that he is a victim of slavery and white supremacy. You see the hypocrisy here, right? You see the absolute hypocrisy here. He's telling the young man, you're not a victim of critical race theory at all. You're not a victim of that. Meanwhile, promoting the idea that people in America right now, Blacks, are victims of white supremacy, having never lived through it. Make that make sense. The educated Black man, light-skinned brother, espousing that Blacks are exploited, right? Because of white supremacy, they're victims, but him bringing out actual life-lived experiences about people who believe CRT and how they put that on him, that's not a... Richie, you a whole fool, bro. You a clown and a half. Like the definition of fool, that's this guy. How he got a degree is beyond me. It's beyond me. He has zero intelligence. He can regurgitate a lot of crap he's heard. No intelligence. Nothing functional in his brain. This is amazing to me to hear him. Because you know what he goes on to do? Bring up all the victims. Just wait, it's going to be epic. After telling the guy that he's not a victim and showing his experience, he goes on to tell the guy about other people who he considers victims because of their experience. Just wait for it.
Nobody's a victim of that whatsoever. And you learned it in the right context. If you were engaged in critical debate in a collegiate atmosphere, that is the right atmosphere, that is the right societal construct in order to learn an advanced theoretical framework, no matter what that framework may be. But all theoretical frameworks pose a question and a concept for analysis. I know you're well aware of that. You were no victim, sir. Let me bring to your attention some elements in modern society that I would like you to answer without using critical race theory, okay?
So he doesn't want him to use critical race theory to explain it, but he's gonna use white supremacy to explain his. Brother, the Young Turks and people on the left amaze the hell out of me, bro. They amaze me. They really do. They amaze me. They trip me out. They trip me out. Your experience doesn't matter. However, I'm going to give you what other people have experienced, and you're going to have to take it. Well, really? Yes, you will. Oh, but you serious? Like, you going, really? Yes, you will. All right. Let him continue. Let him bring up these. Okay.
Do that.
Very well.
4 years of survey data shows that Black students represent only 15% of total US students enrolled in public education, but they make up 35% of students suspended once.
No numbers, just a percentage. Nothing about the amount surveyed, just a percentage. Okay.
44% of students suspended more than once, and 36% of students expelled. That's from the US Department of Education. They also found in their research that this disparity is not explained by more frequent or more serious misbehavior by other students, meaning their behavior was comparable to white students. However, their penalty was much more severe. Let me read you another one. And by the way, I like to always source my data. You can find that US Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights. The New York City police officers were surveyed based on their stops. This was a survey after the fact. So this is not a lived experience.
Again, not how many, just that some were surveyed. Okay.
Experience survey. This is an actual data analytical
Experience,
survey.
right? Experience.
The data analytical survey showed that New York City, 88% of police stops involve Black and Latinx people, while 10% involve white people. Of those stops, 70% were completely innocent. So the data doesn't even justify them targeting Black and brown individuals.
Really? So the stops are where you're getting your base data from? You're not going to go based on the crime rate in the area that they're doing these stops in. That's not what you're going to base it at all, right? You're not going to put it based on the fact that majority of the crime that's happening is done by people that look like the guys they stop in terms of color. You're not going to put that into your equation. No, just base it on the stops alone. Logic.
Another one, and you can find that information, New York Civil Liberties Union, Stop and Frisk data. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to experience a pregnancy-related death than white women, even at similar levels of income and education and health.
What?
You can find that data, the National Partnership of Women Families, Families study.
Different day.
The next one, on average, Black men in the US receive sentences that are 19.1% longer than those of white men convicted of the very same crime. You mean to tell me that I get 20% more time if I'm a Black man convicted in America than my white counterparts, and we are convicted of the same exact crime?
Yes, because you know what? Most of you repeat the same damn crime when you get out. So to avoid it, we keep you in there longer. He doesn't cite that statistic at all. No, because we know what that would do? Counter his argument. Like I said, a weak-minded individual. This particular guy, weak-minded individual. But like I said, he will use when it's good for him, the experience of others and the victimhood thing, and he will blanket the state with this racist undertone. No one else can do that when it comes to CRT. All right? No one else can do that.
There's another one. On average, in the US, Black individuals are twice as likely to be unemployed as white individuals with the same exact background, resumes, sounding names. And they did this over and over again. They submitted the same education, the same experience, changed the name from Abdul to John, and all of a sudden companies started calling them back. Sir, those are dynamics of systemic bias, implicit or hyper-aggressive racism that must be examined. Tell me, how do you back engineer that? How do you examine it without the use of critical race theory?
Well, first of all, so critical race theory, like it wouldn't use that will.
There's one thing I want to hear you say.
And college, you should.
I gotta find it.
The next one on that.
But I'll show you this. You know what? Ignore that one. I'm going to find this one for you. So he's not a proponent of blanketing everybody because he says, black people get this and black people get that and white people get this and white people get that. He doesn't want the man bringing forward his experience. But ironically, he's very, very, very quick to blanket white people a certain way. No issue. But remember, he said he's not biased. No. Here he goes. Okay, listen.
People like Jesse Lee Peterson, they will continue to attack everything that's contrary to their white-dominated social order. I mean, just think about.
While on a white-dominated social order media platform.
The foolishness of this.
I'm
Jesse Lee Peterson is the founder of White History Month.
And?
Need I say more?
Yeah, you do.
All right, let me go to some more of these comments.
I think you do need to say more, but I will leave you there. I will leave you there. I will leave you there for one big reason. The same exact premise that he wants to apply to people he will not want applied to him. In fact, he fights it tooth and nail because Jesse did it and he kicked him off his show. He continues to rant about Jesse after Jesse's off the show. He makes a second video because Jesse on his own show talked about getting kicked off the show. He makes a video just like a petty beta male would about Jesse complaining about getting kicked off his show. But that's okay. Jesse complaining about it and telling people that he got kicked off, that's... If they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. They'd have none. This particular man is a complete and utter waste of space. Waste of space. I want people to understand that this is exactly how they operate, though. They will try to lure you into a conversation, having no desire to actually have that conversation. And they will nitpick at petty little things because that's all they know to do. And they will pick pieces out of places and try and skew it to their narrative when the full context of it completely will blow theirs apart, like Mr. Fool just did. Yep, Mr. Operation. Golly. Anyway, we'll pick up a part 2 probably in the next couple of days. For those of you that are going to be tuning in later at, I think it's about 5:30 or 4:30, one of those two times I set it up for, please be sure to come in and put your 2 cents in, because this will be a good one this afternoon. We need to talk about what I have scheduled. So I won't give it away, but we will talk. Please be sure to be there. It'll be on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitch. My YouTube is banned right now, so I can't even upload this or anything else. So when it's off, my 2 weeks is up, I'll post this. So until then, y'all please have a good day, and I'll catch up with you for part 2 in the next couple of days. And remember, wisdom calls to you from the street. Please find wisdom.